Mobile phones, arguably the most intimate form of computing we've ever had, are increasingly becoming the target of hackers interested in intercepting the voice and data traffic that flows through them. But before attacks on mobile phones can be discussed, it's important that the underlying system employed by mobile phone providers is understood. There are a number of digital networks worldwide that support mobile phones, of which Global System for Mobile Communications, or GSM, is the most popular. GSM accounts for around 80% of worldwide networks with over 3 billion users across over 200 countries, and its ubiquity enables ease of roaming between providers for users that are travelling across the world. Mobile phone networks have also evolved through a number of generations. 1G phones were analog cellular networks, which were replaced by 2G networks that use digital technology. 2.5G is now the baseline standard and enables data support to be added to 2G services. 3G networks are increasing in number with an associated increase in available bandwidth and support for more enhanced services. So what is the risk to businesses and organisations of insecure mobile phones? Well, consider these scenarios. Bob is attending a major trade show where the brightest and the best in his industry are negotiating deals worth millions. Bob has a meeting planned with a potential client to discuss pricing options. Eve works for a competitor and she pays a third party to install Trojan spyware on Bob's cell phone, turning it into a listening device. Eve listens into the negotiations and meets a potential client later that day with a bid that mysteriously undercuts Bob's by 1%. Eve wins the business. A CEO staying in a hotel room needs to take part in a conference call discussing end-of-year financial data prior to a big announcement to the stock market. Fraudsters set up a fake cell phone base station and intercept the conversation, getting advance notice on likely stock movements. A foreign government is keen to acquire as much high-tech intellectual property as it can. It has targeted one company in particular that sells advanced missile systems, and there's information that a senior engineer from that company will be staying in a downtown hotel one weekend. Fraudsters set up a system to intercept his conversations by breaking GSM encryption and learn about future design plans. A company decides to invest in a voice-over IP system as it offers cheap telephony. Criminals hack into the network and intercept the voice data and are able to listen to sensitive discussions. For many people, these targeted attacks would seem extreme and not something they should be bothered about. The reality is that those after your data will target the weakest link, and the prevalence of mobile phones is making them a top target. In order to understand the cost of lost voice data, a year or so ago the Ponemon Institute undertook a study called The Security of Voice Data. The study revealed that 67% of those 75 organisations surveyed were not confident that the information passed during a mobile phone conversation was adequately secured, and only 14% used technologies to secure cell phone calls when travelling to sensitive areas. The cost to the organisation each time a corporate secret is revealed to competitors or their agents has been averaged at $1.3 million. A major concern of mobile phone users that is starting to appear is the threat of malware, and in particular Trojans, or malware that looks benign but carries a dangerous payload, for example games or other applications. Of course, the Windows PC platform is still the biggest target for virus and malware authors, as this produces the biggest return on malware investment. Due to poor security measures taken by users, such as failing to patch their PCs or not using anti-malware, there are now around 4 million PC-based viruses and worms out in the wild. Contrast this with the 400 or so Trojans, viruses and worms targeting smartphones, and you can see the order of magnitude difference. However, complacency is an enemy, and criminals are now exploring the smartphone market as a new and untapped source of devices waiting to be infected. In April 2010, a pirated game was infected with malware, forcing the infected smartphone to dial out to premium international numbers unknown to the user. The first the user knew of the problem was the incoming phone bill at the end of the month. August 2010 saw an SMS-based Trojan for smartphones running the popular Android operating system. The malicious program penetrates smartphones running Android, looking like a harmless media player application. Users are prompted to install a 13K file, and once installed on the phone, the Trojan uses the system to begin sending SMSs to premium rate numbers. Not only does this malware create havoc on the smartphone, it can also take advantage of the voice capability of the device. This is where these threats start to raise very sinister security concerns, far beyond those of the humble personal computer. As a matter of urgency, users need to be protecting their mobile devices from the threat of Trojans, malware and other viruses. Let's move on from the mobile phone itself to mobile phone networks. These networks typically consist of a number of components. To start with, we have a mobile phone handset which acts as a transceiver. A removable subscriber identity module or SIM card combined with a mobile phone is referred to as a mobile station. A base transceiver station or BTS receives and transmits the phone signal. A base station controller or BSC coordinates a number of base transceiver stations and manages the allocation of call channels and the important task of handing off calls between BTSs. Mobile Switching Center or MSC is part of the Network Switching Subsystem NSS and manages the routing of calls, setting up end-to-end connections, handover requirements and account monitoring. The International Mobile Equipment Identity or IMEI is a unique number used to identify a particular handset to a network, a feature that is used to bar stolen phones from accessing a particular network. The International Mobile Subscriber Identity or IMSI is a unique number stored inside the SIM and sent to the network by the phone. The design of mobile phone systems originates from before direct attacks were considered. The move from an analog to a digital system was believed to add sufficient security, and network providers were historically concerned with tracking call fraud rather than dealing with eavesdroppers. Early analog cell phones were basically simple radio systems that had no inbuilt security features and were subsequently open for anyone to listen into with simple radio equipment. As technology advanced, users quite rightly demanded better security, and in 1987 a stream cipher called A51 was developed for that purpose. A52 was developed in 1989 as a weakened version of the cipher for export to less trusted regions of the world. A51 itself is vulnerable to what are called codebook attacks, and the decryption of voice traffic protected by this algorithm have been demonstrably broken. A53 is a stronger encryption algorithm designed for use in 3G systems. This is not always implemented by service providers, and a vulnerability for this was demonstrated in the early 2010. In this case, it took 2 hours to conduct a related key attack on A53 data, but this attack relies on a large volume of plain text to be successful, and it remains an academic attack at the moment.